Hello and welcome to a look at Bomb Jack for the Commodore 64, a Tekken arcade original that was converted and released by Elite. Now, when it comes to plot, there's absolutely no plot in this game. I don't know what to do with myself. I've completely lost the plot in more than one way, you could argue. But you are in control of Bomb Jack, and he specializes in removing bombs, and that is what he's doing on various different screens. And once he has removed all the bombs from the screen, he will move on to the next screen and repeat the process until he turns blue, or you fall asleep, or lose all your lives, or whatever causes you to stop playing. The bombs on the screen have two colors. You have one that is red, and then you have one that is glowing, blinking red. And if you pick up a normal bomb, it will give you some points, and if you pick up a blinking bomb, even, it will give you more points. But not only that, depending on the amount of bombs you pick up, you can spawn one or two simple things. One of them is a B, which will give you a bonus increase. And one is a P, which is a power-up that will turn all enemies on the screen into bonus points you can pick up. But once the timer for the power-up thing has run out, they will start respawning again. So the primary objective, or whatever you call it, is definitely to clear the screens of the different bombs. Naturally, you need some enemies in order to keep you occupied, because it would be too simple if you can just run around and pick up stuff. You have a Volta kind of thing flying around very, very slowly, but will always try to home in on you. And then you have various different other enemies, where you have usually a main enemy that will spawn other enemies, and they will fall down and turn into other things that will be able to walk or fly or whatever else they do. And of course, you need to avoid any of those kind of opponents in order to retain your life while trying to pick up the bombs in the different locations. From a graphical point of view, I think this game looks decent, but I'm not particularly keen on the use of color in this particular game. Some backgrounds more or less hide the bombs. I know that's not entirely true, but they blend in quite unpleasantly. And the Volta thing chasing around that you can become more or less invisible on certain backgrounds. And it is not always easy to tell what is a platform and what is another platform, because the platforms can look like they're part of the background as well. So when it comes to the color use, I am not impressed. It is worth mentioning, of course, that the Commodore 64 having 16 colors was quite an handy back then, but most of its colors are decidedly dull. They don't really stand out, and that means that in order to make good use of the colors, you have to make sure to have sharp contrast to make sure that you can actually see what is what and what you need to avoid and what you can stand on and that kind of stuff. And I don't feel that's been fully accomplished with the graphics in this particular conversion. The sound effects are present, but that are noticeable because of the music. And the music, which is bizarrely enough not related to the arcade original's music, I find of a decent quality, but I also find it somewhat screechy. And I find it tedious to listen to after a short amount of time. It's not bad, but yeah, not a great fan of it, even though I don't really dislike it as such. The controls, left right will do left right things, and then up will jump up. But then of course you have the fire button that you can use to increase the height of your jump if you push up and fire at the same time. And while Bombjack is in mid-air, you can tap the fire button in order to slow his descent, so he's more or less gliding. And both of those controls are very, very important. You're supposed to increase your descent if you push down and fire, but the game tends to read it as you're trying to float, so you start hovering instead of actually increasing your downwards descent. The basic gameplay loop of this game is very, very simple. Certain people have said that it has a similarity to the mechanics of Pac-Man, which is pick stuff up, avoid stuff, get some power stuff from time to time that allows you to defeat what is trying to chase you to prevent you from picking up the stuff. And you can, if you want to, see that similarity, I suppose, even though the two games would be of a very, very different style in the way they've been executed. The pacing of this game is very decent, and the gameplay loop is fairly enjoyable, but for some bizarre reason the platform positions on the screen in the Commodore 64 conversion is a bit too close to the ceiling, meaning that on the arcade original you could bounce back and forth and over enemies patrolling on the platform and still pick up the bombs, but that is virtually impossible to do on the Commodore 64 version, meaning that on many levels you are basically depending on a power thing spawning for you to pick up so you can defeat the enemies and then get to the remaining bombs. Or you can wait for the enemies to eventually get tired of patrolling back and forth and jumping off the ledge and fall down. But that means they usually either turn into something that's much more dangerous, or they start splitting up and creating even more enemies for you to avoid, making the challenge significantly higher. I do enjoy the gameplay loop, but I also found it to be very, very simple, and according to what I can understand, quite a few people will love Bombjack, and I can appreciate that, but it's not the first game I would choose to play. On that note, thanks for watching, take care, see you next time, bye bye for now.